Hi everybody, I'm Tim from troutandfeather.com, and in this fly tying video we're going to talk about the role of social media related to fly tying in the beginning of 2017. Stay tuned. Fly tying in 2017 is drastically different than when I started back in 1989. Whenever I think back to some of those original resources, I think back to going to fly shops, having conversations with others, looking in magazines, books, VHS tapes, that sort of stuff. And now we're at the point where we almost have just this overabundance of resources. It's absolutely incredible. And a large portion of them right now are made up by social media. And that really has changed things for good or for worse in a lot of people's opinions. To kind of talk about where this video is going, back in part one, I basically just asked, do you use social media? And if so, how do you use it? What are your thoughts about it? So I collected all that information and wow, you gave me a ton of information. I had stuff coming in via email, in the comments of that, on different fly tying forums, on Facebook groups, through Instagram, just a lot of information that came in, and I had to try to find a way to kind of sort all of that information. And the one thing that just kept coming up was that it seems like there's not one area where everyone goes. And I think that's probably one of the downsides of all of our resources that we have today. It's that there's not just that one place that gathers everything and disseminates it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in my closing thoughts for this video. But now talk about how this one's going to work. What I've basically done is I've organized all of these into different categories of social media. And I'm going to go through each category one at a time, just really talk a little bit about it and assume that the viewer knows very little about that category, and then really try to break it down into specifics and talk about how it helps fly tyers today. So with that said, let's kind of start this right off, and we're going to jump immediately into our first social media group, which is Facebook. I'm going to start off with Facebook first because it's that one social media page where I know not everyone's in yet. And if you get confused at all, more than likely you'll have a friend or a relative or someone that can kind of help you get to where you need to go. But let's just assume you know nothing about it. For starters, you'll create an account, and within that account, you'll start with your actual name. And then you'll start adding family members, friends, maybe colleagues, maybe fishing buddies, maybe fly tying friends, and you'll start to compile this list. And then within your main site or on your device or within your computer, whenever you log into Facebook, you'll start to see all this stuff that all of your friends posted. Some of it may be pictures of what's going on recently in their life. Maybe it's their opinions. Maybe it's a link to a really great article, or they're just asking a question to everybody else. So that's kind of the initial starting point on Facebook. And I can tell you some people immediately just said they really didn't get into Facebook because when they looked at those initial posts from some of their friends and some of their contacts, there was a lot of drama. There was maybe some clashes going on within those discussions. Some tended to be a little overly political. If we think about the recent presidential campaign we just came through, and again, this is early 2017, there were some very strong opinions within Facebook, and some people just thought, I'm going to get away from this because it's just not where I want to go. So for starters, I'll say to everyone who's kind of thinking about getting into it, remember, you only have to put in people that you really want to see what they're posting. But in my stance, or from where I stand on Facebook, I don't really log in and just scroll and read what everyone's posting. Instead, I tend to kind of go a little bit further into these things called Facebook groups. And this is the one area of fly tying that I think really, the two just mesh really wonderfully. Within Facebook, people create groups, and they're either open or closed groups. What an open group means is basically anyone can join in, and if it's a closed group, you almost have to, I don't want to say know someone to get in there, but basically if you request to join in that group, whoever the head of that group is, or if they have a committee, they'll basically look over your profile and just make sure that you're actually there and you're interested in fly tying or fly fishing, and that you're not just there maybe to publicize something or sell something to that immediate group. once you're in this group, there is just a great opportunity to learn. And what I can tell you, whenever I have joined a lot of groups over the last couple years, there is just so much going on within these groups. There's just a lot of sharing of information, some major creativity going on. And then there's people that are also posting and they're asking questions because they want advice, maybe they want critiques of their patterns. Whenever I put out part 1 and I said, hey, share some of those groups that you're involved in, I got an entire page full of groups, and I looked through basically every single one that came in, and a lot of them got doubled up. But I want to just take the next 2 minutes to share all of these groups that others have recommended to all of you, and they really relate specifically to fly tying and to fly fishing. I'll also have these listed in the description of the video, but let me just take that next minute and I'll go through some of these. Jesse Maughan recommends fly tying with Uncle Cheech, sorry. They have some incredible Tyers within that group. Robert Andersson loves fly tying for beginners and improvers. Joseph Sylvia, he talks about the Galloup streamer fans. That's a website of people that really love to tie flies related to the Kelly Galloup style. Mike P., he's known as Pribis on the fly tying forum. He sent me a few. His were fly tying patterns and videos, the 7 continents of fly fishing and fly tying, and Bug Bond, the art of engineering flies. I think Bug Bond is specifically for those who are using Bug Bond within their flies. Jim Paden, he mentioned a bunch. The fly tying materials swap, Fly Tyers Anonymous, the art of fly tying and fishing, fly fishing / tying classifieds, the classic wet fly and streamers Tyers page, warm water Tyer, Popper Nation fan page, and fly fishing buy sell trade. I have a couple more. Jason King talked about this one. It was called Vise Rehab. And when I looked into it, I realized it wasn't just a group. It was basically this notion of tying sessions, but they were hosted online. So if your computer has a webcam built into it, you can all be together in this one chat room and talk and watch each other tie flies and kind of talk while you're tying. So basically it's an interactive fly tying room online where you can just look and talk to each other while you go about the art of tying flies. It's really unique. I have not participated in that yet within Vise Rehab, but it's a really cool looking site, and I think it could be something to really help, especially those beginning and intermediate tyers, jump to that next level. And then the last couple, Michael Hopkins recommended the Tenkara Kebari library. And finally, Jerry Donnelly mentioned reflections on fly fishing and the fly tying nation. So if you kind of think about all of those groups that are there, this is just one small percentage of all the fly tying and fly fishing groups that are out there. So Facebook, yes, there can be drama. It can get a little overly political. Maybe you see a lot of pictures of your cousin's birthday party that you're really not interested in. Sure, that side of it's there, but I can promise you, whenever we talk about fly tying, there's this other incredible side that you absolutely have to investigate, because it will, without a doubt, spur some creativity in you. I know it has in me. Now, I went over a ton of groups right there. For starters, anyone who mentioned one of those groups, thank you. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. But number 2, if there's a group that you're sitting right now and you're thinking, geez, this is a group that they missed, I got to share it, please do so in the comments section of this video, just so others can be aware of that group. Now let's kind of shift gears a bit, but we're going to jump into a related social media group, and that's Instagram. Next up in this social media discussion is Instagram. And to be honest, I was a little surprised because I didn't get as many people talking about Instagram as I initially thought they would. And then I quickly realized it's because people who are on Instagram tend to be just on Instagram. I'm not saying they don't use YouTube, or I'm not saying they're not on Facebook as well, but it seems like there's a younger age range of individuals, and fly tyers especially, who are using Instagram. And maybe that's not the audience that I'm necessarily reaching with my YouTube videos, and I was really surprised to just see how few Instagram names came in. Now let me talk a little bit about it, then maybe we'll see if you're interested in jumping into it. So for starters, the way that Instagram works is that you sign up and you select a username. Just like all these others, it's free. Once you have your username, kind of like Facebook, you start adding friends and adding these contacts. But then instead of seeing necessarily what's going on with their daily life and them talking about their opinions and their daily content and sharing articles, Instagram tends to be focused on just pictures or videos. And whenever you post one, it's just one picture or one video. Now there's ways where you can put a few pictures together, but for the most part, just concentrate on that one picture or one short video, and that's it. Then below that, people will have a little description of what's going on within that image, and then they use these things called hashtags. And hashtag was all the craze a few years ago, but the hashtag component is probably the most unique part of Instagram, and it's one that I'm going to talk about within these comments. So now, similar to Facebook, whenever I open my phone, click on Instagram, I get a bunch of pictures. And unlike Facebook, I don't tend to add as many family members on Instagram. So whenever you look through my pictures, it's just all flies and fish. Now, that's that one downside of Instagram, and it was something that we talked about at the International Fly Tying Symposium in 2016. Mr. Chuck Ferimsky had invited me to be a part of the blogger panel, and we had all these questions we were going to discuss. And one of them was, is social media killing fly fishing? Because whenever you look on Instagram, you have a ton of pictures of people holding these big fish. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? Now, during that discussion, I was talking about how, in my opinion, that was a good thing, because it kind of reminds me and it reminds others that, hey, those big fish are out there, go get them. Versus others who look at it as, geez, why can't I catch a fish that big? So there's both sides of the issue. Now, whenever I kind of break down Instagram a little bit more, I look at it as, for starters, at the top of everyone's account, there's the number of people they're following and then their own followers. Now, I can tell you, it seems that people who post a lot of content have more followers. Is that important? Maybe, maybe not. But others tend to follow many of these really innovative fly tyers out there. And I'm going to get to that list in a minute. So you can look through basically anyone's profile, as long as it's not a private profile, and see who they're following. And kind of, so if you know that there's a really great fly tyer that you love to watch them tie, and you love to see what types of patterns they're tying, you can also see who is that individual watching, which is kind of a nice take on that, because that's something you really couldn't have known 30 or 40 or 50 years ago. The one thing that I also kind of watch out for, there's a lot of businesses on Instagram, and they kind of have personal accounts, but they'll push their products. And you'll notice that right away. There's also a lot of individuals that are considered ambassadors of certain products, and you'll see people that are posting, and they'll talk about the product that they're using in that picture or in that video, and they'll have a hashtag about that product too. So just be aware of that. But finally, probably one of the most interesting parts of Instagram, aside from those hashtags, is the messaging capability, very similar to Facebook. Basically, anyone that you're friends with within this Instagram, you can simply click a button and send them a message. And it could be someone that you've watched their DVDs for years. And it's neat to know just how quick that communication can occur. Say you're heading out west to take a fly fishing trip and you're not quite sure what flies to tie. You can quickly jump on Instagram, figure out a few of the guides in that area, and send them messages and see what's going on. Now, that's not to say they're going to give you their #1 guide fly, but they definitely may help you out. And that's a really unique component of Instagram to keep in mind. So let me go through, and I'm going to share with you just some additional information that I received from others, and I'm also going to share with you some usernames that others have recommended. And I'll always start the username with @ and @ their name, and that's that @ symbol that's on your keyboard. So for starters, Nolan Pearson, he recommended 3. He recommended @hogfish, and again, I'll have these all listed in the description. That was spelled HAWGFISH. He also recommended Tide Flies, TIED Flies, and then finally @flyfish food. That's one that I follow too. It's a really great one. Flats Roamer on Fly Tying Forum. This is a gentleman by the name of Carson. He has an Instagram account. It's called @saltflies. He talks a lot about Instagram and was saying how it's really great for him to just effortlessly interact with followers and people in general. It's a really great thing, and he recommends that all fly tyers should use it, and check out his Instagram page. From the PA Flyfish Forum, Hopback, he recommends somebody called LV2 Nymph. So basically love to nymph, and also Gaga Flies, spelled GAGAFLIES. They have some very nice flies. Paul Quiroga, I apologize, Paul, if I butchered your last name. What he mentioned was something that I talked about at the beginning, and it's the notion of hashtags. Because in his mind, it helps him to look up some very specific photos of maybe a material that he's curious about and the ways that people use them. And to me, this is a really, it's an incredible kind of component of Instagram that I think a lot of people forget about. So within Instagram, they have this search, and you can type in anything you want within that search. Maybe you're searching for a certain individual, but maybe you're searching for a certain hashtag. So let me just set this up for you. Let's say I post a picture of a humpy dry fly that my Uncle John tied. So I'll put below in the description something like, this is one of my favorite dry flies tied by my Uncle John. Then down below that, I'll start to put hashtags. Some common hashtags that I place in all of mine are hashtag trout and feather. And if you click on that hashtag, you'll see anything that anyone else has also listed with the hashtag trout and feather. I'll put maybe hashtag fly fishing, hashtag fly tying, maybe hashtag humpy dry fly. And what's neat about that is that it's kind of a general reminder. Say you want to look on Instagram and see what other types of humpy dry flies others are tying, and maybe try to get a creative spin of one. Then you can simply search for that hashtag humpy or hashtag humpy dry fly and see what comes up. It's not always going to be just fly tying or fly fishing. There's going to be some other crazy stuff in there sometimes, but you're going to get to see just an abundance of new ideas, new materials, new flies. And again, just like Facebook, I really hope it gets your creative juices going. So that hashtag component is one that I use a ton, trust me. Let's see, next, Paul also mentions a few Tyers that he would recommend. One is at vtrampa_fly_, at Satoshi Tanaka 77390, at Boo Trout, that's BOO Trout, and at Bright River Fly. And then finally, one individual that I follow, and I follow a couple hundred individuals on Instagram, but one that I really like, it's a gentleman by the name of Michael Zapal. I believe he's from Poland, and his is at Live for Fly Fishing, and it's LIVE, the number 4, and then fly fishing. He's always posting some really incredible pictures of these nymphs that he's tying over there, and they just look just meticulous and perfect. I wish he could send me some. And then finally, this is the one new area of Instagram and kind of a newer area of Facebook that I'm starting to see that's really common, and it's the notion of live. This one individual, Finn follower, wanted me to mention that to all of you because there's this new thing that's going on where somebody might get ready to tie and they set their phone in front of their Vise and they click a button within Instagram and it's called live, and it's instantly live, and anyone who is following that person will get a notification saying that individual is live right now, and you can click, you'll immediately see them, you can send them messages while they're tying, you can hear what they're talking about, you can ask them questions about the materials. It's a really great component. I watch it occasionally. There's some individuals that I follow on Facebook and Instagram that tie abroad, so it's really great. My wife and I sometimes will be getting ready to eat, or she'll just run out into the living room with Angelo, and then she'll hear some French-speaking fly tyer, our buddy Dominique, tying in the kitchen. She'll say, "What's going on in there?" And I'll say, "No, that's Dominique. He's live on Facebook right now." So it's a really great component that I recommend you checking out. Just like what I mentioned with Facebook, if there are some other individuals out there that I missed that you'd like to mention, please do so in the comments below. But for now, let's move on to our next topic within social media, and this one is called Pinterest. The next area of social media that we're going to discuss is Pinterest. And this is going to be the shortest area because I am not someone that personally uses it. So I'm not even going to act like I know enough about it to be dangerous. Instead, I'm just going to focus on what a couple individuals sent me. And this was Jeffrey Thrash and Joe Duca. And you could tell that the two of them, they definitely use Pinterest and they're excited by it. And they help to kind of fill in the blanks with me because Pinterest is something that it doesn't seem like a lot of fly tyers use, at least when I initially looked into it. Then the more I searched, I realized quite a few people are using it. And let me kind of talk about how it works. For starters, you sign up for Pinterest. It's a free account. And you basically have a pin board. And within your pin board, you can pin images, you can pin videos, you can pin objects. Some of the images might lead to a blog, some of them might lead to a website. Basically, you pin a bunch of stuff to your board, and then you always have that there as your own reference board. So it's a really unique take on the internet because some people use favorites and they have the little star in their internet browser and they can keep all that stuff that way. But instead, On Pinterest, you have your own pin board, and it's where you keep everything, but you're also able to look through others. And I think that's probably the neatest component of it that I was able to find out. So Pinterest, again, it's not one that I necessarily use, but I can tell you there's a bunch of people out there that are using it, and they are definitely recommending it to others there. So if you're interested in it at all, I would say I would definitely encourage you to at least look into it, see what it's all about, see if you can do some searches within Pinterest, and then from that point, I'd love to hear back from you to see how you're using it to either spur your creativity or making yourself a better tyer, because I know it without a doubt has the capability to do so. So again, Jeffrey and Joe, thank you so much for taking the time to send me all the information related to Pinterest. Next, we're going to kind of investigate the last area of social media. It's going to be YouTube and then the internet. Let's look at YouTube related to social media. Now, for obvious reasons, I really like YouTube. This is where I've chosen to place all of my content, and though I have a Facebook and Instagram, YouTube is really where I know my audience is, and it's where I turn to so often to just gather information. And whenever I ask everybody to comment about social media, even though I was really anticipating more about Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and all those other places, so many people kept just saying, I love YouTube. Because if you're a beginning tyer, if you're an intermediate tyer, even if you're an expert tyer, there is so much content there. There's so many new flies being posted, and it's such an informative channel. There's just an abundance of information. There's abundance of creativity. There's just ideas on YouTube. And most importantly, it does have that social component by the comments below videos. I've chosen to leave the comments on within every single one of my videos. And I love to hear from all of my viewers and subscribers and just hear their thoughts on the fly, if they like it or if they don't. And I reply to every single comment that's there, because that's important to me. I love to build these connections through YouTube, and again, it's a social aspect of fly tying, and it's one that I really enjoy. So many of you recommended others. Some that rose to the top were Davie McPhail. He's kind of considered the #1 YouTube tyer. He's the best. There's no question about it. He has just a crazy amount of videos, and they are just awesome. His tying skills are just incredible. Tightline Productions, that's Tim Flagler. He does just an awesome job. Darrion Clouse also likes Pat Cohen's channel. There's some other great channels, such as In the Riffle, FlyFish Food. There's one called Gunnar Brammer. It's GUNNAR FlyFishing the Ozarks, and also The Weekly Fly, which has rotating fly tyers such as Kelly Galloup. And those came in, by the way, from Jason King, who has Instagram, which is @spotted_dog_flies. Jason, I really appreciate those comments. So YouTube is just this comprehensive gathering of videos, which I obviously love. But now whenever I kind of jump to this final area of social media, I'm going to hopefully find it within my notes, but I want to reference the internet in general, because at first whenever I thought about the internet, there's not that social component. But then I quickly realized there is, within certain websites, within forums such as the Fly Tying Forum, within paflyfish.com. Those are two that I belong to, that I post within on a regular basis. And they've also built these fly tying communities, which are just excellent. It's just a great way to connect with others. So by all means, if you're not involved within those forums, you can just easily join. They're free, and there's some great discussions that go on related to fly tying. And then that offshoot that I wanted to mention, Carrie Pitt sent me a message and told me that Carrie's been tying since 1969, and back then all of our resources were really limited. That tying information was just, it was a really minuscule amount compared to what we have today. Carrie said that they learned all of their tying from or a lot of the tying from a well-illustrated book by Helen Shaw. But then what Carrie went on to talk about is the notion of these fly tying swaps, and Carrie's been participating in them since 1995. And what's neat about a fly tying swap is that somebody just decides to organize a swap, and they might say, I'm looking for 12 people, and I'd like everyone to tie a steelhead fly. But you wouldn't tie one steelhead fly, you would tie, we'll say if there's 12 people, you would tie maybe 12 steelhead flies. And then everyone will send their dozen flies to that moderator, and that person will separate them and then send them back to everybody. And you'll then receive 11 different steelhead flies. And it's just a really it's a great concept. It's an incredible idea. I participated in them before, and what's neat about it, and this is what Carrie references, is that it tends to stretch your abilities, because sometimes you sign up for a swap and you realize, geez, you're getting crunched on time, and you promised that you were going to try a new pattern, and maybe you haven't practiced that pattern yet, and you got to learn quick. So the notion of a fly tying swap within those forums is just a great one. And if you haven't experienced that yet, I would definitely encourage you to, because you're going to get some really unique flies back. Well, with that said, that was the last component of social media that I wanted to discuss. And now let me get to my final thoughts regarding all of it. So let's kind of wrap up social media within fly tying. And now's where I'll kind of share some of my final opinions. For starters, like I mentioned at the beginning, geez, social media has just really brought fly tying to a completely different place. It's changed so much in the last 10, 20 years. My wife was just talking about how the iPhone now has been out for 10 years. And it really just makes me wonder, where is technology going to take us in the next 10 years? What's this video going to look like in 2027? What's even going to be out there for us as fly tyers? I'm really excited to find out. If you haven't heard it yet, through my enthusiasm, through my actions, through some of my words, I love the notion of social media and fly tying. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But it's another resource. Now, the one thing that I did want to mention in these final thoughts, there's an individual by the name of Alan Biffle through the Fly Tying Forum, and he wanted to also make everyone aware that there's right now no vetting agency necessarily, because fly tying rules, they used to really be strict and everyone kind of had to adhere to them or else your fly wasn't correct. But then the notion of social media has kind of exploded those. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. So Alan, without a doubt, I 100% agree with you, because that notion of vetting is gone. There's individuals that are tying flies and they're saying they're for one thing, but they may or may not be. And it's tough, because if you're someone that follows that individual, you may look at it as that person is the expert, they have to know, and that's why I'm going to do that. So kind of keep that in mind, that there's no one out there now saying, yeah, that's the correct thing or that's an incorrect way, and there could be a better or a proper way to do things. That's something that we have to kind of keep in mind and be cautious about as we move forward. But the final kind of piece of this is that I can see so many younger people now getting involved in fly tying and fly fishing because of it. There's two individuals that I know of, Andrew Dang. You've seen Andrew tie on my channel before, and there's an individual named Carson who you hopefully will see tying on my channel in the future. They're just two of the younger generation that are starting to move up. They're both ninth graders. Andrew's at AD Fly Fishing on Instagram. Carson's at Salt Flies on Instagram, and it just blows my mind to know we have ninth graders out there making YouTube videos on fly tying, sharing their skills, and when you watch these videos you think, wow, they're excellent, and they're in ninth grade. Imagine where they're going to take this sport if they continue to stay interested in it. And I think it's our responsibility to make sure that we're doing that for those out there, so let's support them within social media. So with all that said, thank you so much to all of you who sent in any of your Facebook pages, your Instagram followers, or any of the information that helped me to make this video, because that was just an abundance of information, as you see here. I couldn't have made this information without all of that. To everyone who's not into some of those social media groups, I challenge you to get involved within them and see what's out there. It may be for instructional purposes, it may be for creativity, but I can assure you that there's some incredible information. The internet's awesome, but there's so many other avenues within social media that I encourage you to explore. I have, and I'm really glad that I took that jump in, because I was the person 5 or 6 years ago saying, you'll never see me on Facebook, Instagram. I didn't know what Instagram was. And now I make posts on a regular basis. Now, a lot of my posts relate to these videos. You can find me on Facebook and on Instagram at Trout and Feather. So my posts are probably not going to be as great as some others out there, but I'm into it, and I use Instagram all the time to look for some inspiration, as I know some people turn to certain individuals on there for that same purpose. So again, I really challenge you to look into that and investigate it further. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can always email me at tcammisa@gmail.com, or since this is a video focused on social media, leave some comments down below in the comments section. If there's anything that I missed, please help to fill in the blanks below to help others. I can't wait to look back in about 5 years on this video and read those comments and kind of see where we are then, because it's exciting to know that fly tying is definitely going places. If you'd like to watch more of my fly tying videos, you can check out my website, which is troutandfeather.com, and I hope to see all of you on Facebook, Instagram, and whatever that next social media piece is. Thank you again, everyone, and I'll see all of you next time.